non-storage part of this C1T, do you just remember off the top of your head what page it would be on? You know, that actual verbiage change that really, because that's really what drove this entire process, right? If I'm
Yeah.
understanding correctly.
Just 1 second.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, I just would like to read it.
Let me just get there 1 second.
Or is it just that it's not there? It's just it's not listed.
So you'll see under, if you look at page 14,
14. Okay.
you'll see all the permitted uses in
Yes.
C1.
Yes.
And then, we gotta see, and you go to number 8.
Number 8, yes, buildings used in research.
Yep, laboratories, storage buildings.
They took out the storage.
So we took out the storage buildings. So if you go on the ordinance today, page 14 is what you're gonna see. When we are done tonight, if the planning commission so chooses, that word storage buildings are gonna be removed.
Okay.
Because when you go to the next page, under C2, on 15,
Yes.
under permitted uses, it says all permitted uses under 1B, or B1, all permitted uses allowed in C1. So that's allowed then is storage units under page 14, where it says number 8, storage buildings. That's how we get away with that. So C2 says everything that's allowed in C1 plus the extras. But we're going to remove it from C1 and put it just in C2.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that area.
Well, it's kind of in there for dual purpose because the gentleman that wants to rezone it also kind of fits both, but you're welcome.
All right, we will call our July 20th, 2020, 6 o'clock planning board meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the consent of the minutes from our June 15th planning board meeting.
I'll move passage of the minutes.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have some new business. Looks like there's a rezone for MKI Enterprises. These on page 7. Looks like they are looking to rezone currently in an R1 to a C1 real estate office.
So right now tonight, we're just looking at setting the hearing, right?
That is correct, and you know, I'm sure more discussion will come out of it. I guess that if the planning commission doesn't see a real big issue with it, they're gonna set the public hearing. If they had a big issue with that being C1, we may want to talk about it and let that applicant know that this is probably gonna come up as an issue, so he's not blindsided at the public hearing. But yes, he's asked to rezone one of the residential homes there to commercial. It does abut Business 23, and as if you look at the map that I provided you, every parcel, blocks going east and west, are either commercial, highway commercial, or downtown commercial, except for the 2 parcels on that block.
That's the house directly north of Casey's, right?
It is not actually, it's actually down a complete block.
It's down the
Oh,
block, right
yes.
by Pomeroy. Yep.
So it'd be like across the street from Napa.
Napa.
That's
Yeah. And our comp plan shows it to be residential. However, the comp plan is severely outdated. The last time it was updated was in 2003. So that will be coming towards you in a short future. And I could see that as a comp plan change.
I'm leery about doing it. We just talked at our last meeting or the meeting before about the shortage of housing in town and the problem with investors buying up homes and taking them away from lower income people. So I have concerns about this, but I'm willing to hear Matt and ask him those questions. So I guess I'd move to set the MK Enterprises rezoning public hearing for Monday, August 17th at 6:05 p.m.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we are going to open the public hearing We're going to close the planning board meeting, open the public hearing for the C1 and C2 ordinance amendment. Open the public hearing in regards to that.
I would just say as a, not as a board member, but just as a member of the community, that I will not be supporting this simply because of the concept that, and I understand, you know, the verbiage change, but the primary reason was to remove the opportunity for people to purchase buildings in C1 for storage. And I guess two points. First off, I don't see it as an issue. And secondly, I see it as taking away people's personal property rights. So I just wanted to voice that as a member of the public.
As a member of the public, I have a question. As people that have that are currently using it as storage, are they grandfathered in?
That's my understanding. Jennifer?
That is correct.
I was wondering, it's on page 28, it's subdivision C, the permitted accessory uses. Would we be well advised to perhaps add in there that if there's a secondary building, that could be used for storage or something to that effect? I know it was discussed, what if somebody just needs a place to store things? It's not the primary, but it's a, you know, backup for inventory or something.
Certainly it could be considered, absolutely. I'm trying to think of some of the businesses that might, that apply to. The first one that comes to mind would be Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones don't particularly have a secondary, trying to think, you know, that's detached from their main structure. I'm trying to think of another business that has that.
Detached from their main structure?
Detached.
I would say I fall under that category.
On the Washburn property or the Main Street property?
Well, just the fact that it's, you know, it's all one business, but yet, I do primarily more machining or more manufacturing and machining in one spot and certainly more storage in another spot. Am I understanding you correct, Sean? Is that what you're referring to, or am I misunderstanding you?
My intent was to say, you know, just a sort of one address.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was intending to do, but,
So whether it would be attached or detached wouldn't.
yeah, so like if you're, you know, the other one I'm thinking of is the people who just bought the corner drug building are doing sort of like a retail thing, but they're gonna need a large part of it for the storage of their inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that they have that retail aspect, I don't wanna say, you know, you can't use the back half of the store as storage.
I think that's every store downtown has storage.
Yeah, I think that's a
For all
given.
inventory. So I don't think we would want to address that. That's given because they're in a service or retail, even us, we have storage.
No, absolutely,
You know,
yeah.
So
But
I would say it would only apply to the maybe a detached.
detached
But
at a particular address.
I still think if Len, you know, has a business and he has to store his AIS equipment, that's part of his business, he should be able to use his garage that he is on that parcel for that because it's part of his business.
I would think so too. Yeah.
I think we still need to focus on, and does the planning commission, the planning board want just a full front business to be used as storage?
And not to muddy the waters, but I also, and I think, Mr. Spooner pointed this out, and I think would be in agreement with me, is that I don't know how you're gonna enforce something like this. And it's just, as he stated, almost a direct quote, we already have several things on the books that are almost unenforceable. And I see this as just adding to that list.
Well, and I think Bill said in part, correct me if I'm wrong, is when somebody comes and asks for, a lot of people that come to our counter say, I'd like to buy this building, and I'd like to use it for this, what kind of licenses do I need? What kind of permits do I need? That's where staff could say, well, we don't allow this. Or when they're doing their research on, looking at a building, what is allowed in that zone? Or they'll ask me, what is that property zoned?
Okay.
And that's the very first question they ask. And then, they'll say, well, can I do this in that?
Okay.
So that's where you might be able to deter a few. The other one is going to be on a complaint basis, where then you're kind of a buyer beware, that you have to be able to know what is permitted before you just start.
Those were the questions that I had, so I think if we were back in our planning meeting, I would move to approve the ordinance.
And what page are you seeing that action on, Michelle? 23?
Yep.
There it is.
So then that motion will be, what's back to.
Yeah, we have to close the public hearing, reopen.
Okay.
And then
And then we'll close this one, reopen that one then.
Well, I'll go ahead and close this one,
Okay.
and then you can do the vote, because you still got time.
Okay. All right, we will close the public hearing for the C1 and C2 ordinance, reopen the planning board meeting. So at this time, we will be looking for a motion to approve or deny the ordinance.
So I move to approve ordinance number 18, the third series, amending section 36 to 46, entitled C1 Central Business District, sections 36 to 47, entitled C2 Highway Commercial District, and recommend such to the council.
You have a second? I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed? Randy?
I didn't get a chance to read this because I just got it just before I came here, the mail came, so I didn't get a chance to read it.
So you're abstaining for
Yes,
time being?
yes.
So we have a 2-2 vote.
It fails. It's not a majority.
Okay.
So we will go to council with that.
Close enough.
All right, we will close the planning board meeting again. We're going to open the public hearing for wind and solar commercial farm ordinance amendment public hearing.
So if you recall, at our last meeting, there was a quite a bit of discussion regarding wind and solar energy conversion or commercial type wind and solar farms being allowed or not allowed, and what that might look like within our city limits, just within our city boundaries. And we'll probably talk about the wind first, since that's listed first, is Bill folks have brought up a number of things like the shadow flicker and the bird kill that we hadn't thought of. And then just the magnitude of them, the height of them. So at that meeting, we decided to just prohibit any wind energy systems within the city limits. And then on the solar part, we had at that point allowed them in the industrial part of town, but only under conditional use so that we could monitor the cleanup, the decommissioning of them, the recycling of the panels, things like that, fencing, so those things. So before you, you have the amended that you guys looked at, ordinance on how it would go to council with those changes in there.
I think the only concern that I had when I went through it was to make sure that if it is allowed within the city or the solars, that it would not be very visible from the highway, just to protect it. And I think Jennifer and I would discuss that there would likely be a zone of commercial prior to the industrial.
And if I understand right, it is a condition, it still would require conditional use, so you'd still have a hearing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
That would be
You
good.
know, we have to think about the broad aspects of the industrial, that, you know, industrial encompasses a lot of things. Some aren't as kind as others. You know, adult entertainment for one, we probably would not want that at our newly improved Lake Avenue at an Akron intersection. So we would definitely want to look at those types of things and maybe have commercial and then industrial would sit just a tad bit further back. And of course, if it is up against any residential, of course, there has to be a buffer, either a fence or green space material, shrubbery, tree, something like that.
Barring any other discussion, I would make a motion to approve ordinance number 17, third series. Or are we still in the?
Yep.
I apologize.
No, it's
I
okay.
forgot about that.
Maybe ask if there's
Is there any other feedback, questions in regards to this?
So this doesn't affect residential, correct?
No, if you still want, well, it doesn't affect our industrial either, because we have some industries that have solar panels on their roofs right now. So if you have a garden solar panel that's producing energy for your own home, that's not considered commercial. You're not using that to sell, work through Xcel Energy or whatever it is, CenterPoint or whoever you're trying to get energy through, so no. And you can still, have your small solar type of things that are used for your own home.
But this is a flat-out ban on any and all windmills.
Wind, yes.
So even if I wanted to get a small one that I could put on a pole in my backyard, that is impermissible now.
Well, this would be also if you have a decorative windmill, that's different than this, that's not producing energy for you.
Right, but I mean, like, you can go to Menards and get one for like $300 that only puts out a few hundred watts, and it doesn't generate a ton, but
We are saying that they are prohibited. Yep.
Could we add a caveat saying that windmills that are under a certain size are allowable in residential?
Well, we have it saying wind energy systems, including wind conversion systems or windmills and wind energy farms are prohibited. I don't know if we want a caveat, just because can we manage, or can that homeowner manage the shadow flickering and the bird kill? Because we still have those issues, no matter how small or how big that windmill is.
And for the record, my understanding was this was primarily geared towards industrial type.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I do too.
I understand what you're saying, that concern.
because I mean, I've been actually thinking about one, and I thought in my head this was just industrial.
That's what I thought.
Because I've got a backyard capable of maybe doing something, and Bill, if you've got experience, you might know if I'm dreaming of whether or not I can do it or not. But I don't think shadow flicker is an issue with where I could put it. Height might be a concern with all the trees and stuff that I have there, but this just flat out bans that from even being
Well,
considered.
I might be wrong, because if you look under the definitions, it says wind energy conversion system or windmill means an apparatus capable of converting wind into energy or electricity, okay? So a home one would be, and a wind energy farm is a group converting it into electricity, which are not directly connected to or designed to serve the energy needs of our primary use on the property. The rather for the primary purpose of wholesales and generated electricity.
Where were you saying that second definition, Jennifer?
The bottom of page 35 and the top of page 36.
Oh, okay, I just missed it on the top of 36.
And then it goes into saying wind energy systems, including wind energy conversion systems or windmills, and wind energy farms are prohibited. So they're defining it,
It
so
really doesn't say anything about residential systems,
it does not.
so we're not addressing it, the way I'm seeing it. Is that
If
correct?
it's not addressed, it's not allowed in zoning.
So we would really have to go back and put it in there if we want.
Yes, if you came up with a certain language, you could deny or approve it tonight with that change, and that could be presented to council.
What if we just added a section, I don't know how it would be numbered, but similar to the 3692, where we just said, residential wind energy conversion systems or windmills may be permitted by conditional use.
So you're saying wind energy systems may be permitted as a conditional use?
Yeah, residential.
So residential wind energy systems?
Mm-hmm.
Well, energy and solar.
But the solar's above, so I think we'd probably have to add another one in Article 4, identifying it as a conditional use, is that right? Because in section 3692, it says solar energy farms need to have a conditional use.
Yep.
So wouldn't we need like a 36-129 letting us do a wind farm as a conditional use as well? Because then I think we can say wind energy farms are prohibited, because that would be the industrial scale.
But farms would indicate more than one, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
So if you had one single, 1.5 megawatt tower, it's still huge and it's still pretty
Yeah.
intrusive.
So it's still, all right. I think you need to stick with the statement of residential.
Okay, and let that be the defining one. And then it still needs the conditional use so that we can address those concerns. And maybe we even put that in there to say, the conditional use process shall consider the effect on birds, solar flicker, shadow flicker, excuse me, among other issues.
And it brings up an interesting point too about, fallover protection, that, if you put a 40, I think the limit's 45 foot, so if you put a 44-foot tower up 25 feet from your neighbor's property, that's something to consider too, that it needs to have a fall position inside your property zone. Yeah, I guess, like I said, I had never really thought about the fact that we were,
I might have the only yard in town capable of doing this, so maybe it's not even a thing.
maybe we just let you do it and just not even.
Yeah, maybe I just put it up now.
Sometimes it's easier just to not ask, just say no, Sean. But you bring up a valid point. So I don't know what you want to do.
Yeah, I know those systems are getting more efficient all the time, where you can just put it on like the eave of your garage and just generate a small amount and just trickle charge batteries throughout the day.
Yeah, if you could put it on the eave of your garage, oh my gosh, yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So do we table this and put it back for revision, or what would you like to do?
I guess you could do two things. One, like Jennifer said, you could add that as a motion to the council to add in the residential with the conditional use, or you can table it and we could rewrite it and bring it back, whichever you prefer.
Well, I will rescind whatever I said earlier. Sean, if you want to verbalize something to put forward as a motion, I'm all for it.
I'll pull something out of my keister.
Out of your mask.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Any other follow-up questions? All right, so we will close the public hearing for wind and solar commercial farm ordinance. We will reopen the planning board meeting. So this time we will be looking for a motion.
I will move to approve ordinance number 17, third series, amending wind and solar energy conversion system regulations, subject to amendment so as to include residential windmills as a conditional use and recommend such to the city council.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, we'll go into our informational.
So this is just the quarterly newsletter that usually appears in your planning agenda. Gives you a little bit of insight on, what's coming down, if there's, especially for our building officials, trainings, law changes, licensures, things like that. And then on the building permits, you'll see that according to the open building permits, we have about 80, we've issued 86 here, we've actually issued 88 permits, of which 10 of them are about reserved for over-the-counter permits. So to date, we've issued about 78 permits. That is less than what we've had in the past. But typically July and August are not real big months for building permits. They just aren't. We will have our busiest months ahead of us, September, October, November, as long as the frost holds out. July and August, parents typically, if it was a non-COVID year, they're too busy traveling, vacations, and then getting children ready or off to schools. So July and August are fairly slow, besides December, January, February. So, can't think of anything else earth-shattering in the building world. There's a lot of updating things. I know that the departments are busy working on that. So.
Obstructing views.
What was that?
Obstructing views.
I saw that sign.
I have a question. So the multifamily 5+ units by Alliance Building Corp on page 50, what is that next to? 245 Covington.
So that is the community apartments right on Highway 55, right between Highway 55 and Spruce Street, just adjacent to John Weber Landscaping. They are putting a second phase on that apartment complex. They actually, when they purchased that property, their plan was a second phase of an additional 24 units as well as garages, and they have started that now.
So how many units total do you think they will end up with?
The new one is 24. I think the existing one is 26 or
I think it was a
28.
total of 49, wasn't it?
Yeah. So along with the garages that are like like an add-on. If you don't need a garage, you don't have to have one type of thing. But yes.
Very cool. Yeah.
The senior housing, we have not heard any more from them. So hopefully they'll are still planning and in those plans.
Yeah, that's right. I think they had a real problem.
Yeah, we've got that too, just because they were very excited and anxious, but I suppose utilizing the space and all that needs time. And
They were doing soil boring.
they had been, but that's been a few weeks now, so I don't know what the turnaround is from when the engineers and architects do that soil to producing that plan for submittal. And of course, plumbing and HVAC all has to go to the state, so I know they were a little bit behind, again, due to COVID, but, and the school is continuing on. They are trumping forward, so. Yeah.
So our next meeting will be Monday, August 17th at 6 p.m. Meeting adjourned.
Fantastic.